Welcome to my comprehensive guide on how to use every single weapon in Rust and improve your overall aim. My name is hJune and I've played this game for over 12,000 hours. Hopefully today I can help you understand everything you need to know in one video. This in-depth tutorial will be split into 3 sections. First, we'll be going over everything outside of the game that can help you improve and can potentially impact your gameplay. These are things such as your computer specs, your equipment, mouse, monitors, and even your posture. Next, we'll be going through all the things within the game that you might need to configure or learn about. For example, your sensitivity, DPI, in-game settings, recoil patterns, and just knowledge about the game mechanics. Finally, I'll be showing some practice runs and warm-ups that I do that you can follow to improve as well. I'll be timestamping all the different sections and subsections in the tutorial so that it's easier to follow. And also, if you're just not interested in something or it doesn't apply to you, you can easily skip to the next part. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we even talk about what you can do in-game, we have to talk about all the factors that come from outside that can massively affect how well you can play. The most obvious one is your PC. Facepunch recommends that you at least have an Intel Core i7-4690K CPU or AMD Ryzen 5 1600 and above. You need at least 16GB of RAM and a GTX 980 GPU or AMD R9 Fury or above. They also highly recommend that you have an SSD. I would say if I had to rank the order of importance for computer part upgrades, your CPU is at the number 1, your RAM at number 2, your GPU at number 3, and also having an SSD is very important for loading things in-game and speeding up your loading time when joining a server. If you're curious about what kind of computer I have, my specs are in the description below. Of course, individual skill has a lot to do with how well you can play video games, but also having good performance and high frame rate is just as important. If I were to use a metaphor, it's like basketball. If you're 4 foot tall, it'll be a lot more difficult for you to compete than say if you were rather 6 foot. And if you're 7 foot tall and athletic, you have all the tools you need. You just need to practice. No matter how many frames you get in-game, you're always limited by how fast your refresh rate is on your monitor. If you have a 60Hz monitor and you're getting 1000 frames in game, it doesn't really matter. In your eyes, you'll still only see 60 frames per second. For Rust, you're never going to need a monitor faster than 144Hz, since you're probably not going to get over that amount in FPS. However, if you really want to reach your full potential, I think it's essential that you at least get 144Hz in 2020. Now that you have good frames and a good refresh rate, the next most important equipment that affects your aim is your mouse and mousepad. Everyone has different body types and preferences, so it will all vary depending on you. You want a mouse that will fit your hand nicely, has a good weight that you like, a mousepad with the right resistance, and optionally, you can get custom mouse gates as well. I use a G Pro wireless mouse with Hyperglide mouse gates, and for the mousepad, I use the HyperX Fury S. That's just what works for me, but the only way to find out what works for you is to try a bunch of different ones for yourself. Another thing to note is, the longer you use your mousepad, the more gamer gunk and sweat is going to be infused with it. That will cause your mouse to move inconsistently throughout the pad, so make sure you clean your mousepad regularly. What chair you sit in is often neglected by a lot of gamers, but believe it or not, it's actually really important. You see gamers all the time destroy their back with bad posture or start developing carpal tunnel on their wrists, and that's really no good. You don't want to potentially ruin your body just because of a video game. I pretty much sat in shitty chairs all my life, but luckily around 4 months ago, the co-founders of Secret Lab reached out and it was nice enough to send me their new Titan XL gaming chair. After sitting on this thing for months and months, turns out a good quality chair can really do a lot for your health, comfort, and aim. First of all, it fits me perfectly, which is pretty rare for a big guy like me at 6'2", and this thing is super comfortable. My old chair had an armrest I couldn't even move. It had really bad support and cushion, and compared to that, the Titan XL is a godsend. The adjustable 4D armrests on the Titan XL allow me to have my elbows at the same level as my desk, and for me, having that alignment helps protect my wrists from having to be in weird angles and also stabilizes my aim since it's all in one level. I can also have the chair adapt to my exact preference whenever I game with a heavy-duty multi-tilt mechanism. I can lie all the way down when it's nighttime in Rust to rest, or just as easily sit back up when I need to focus. I've had a long talk with the co-founders and not only found out that they like my videos, but they're really down-to-earth people that care about their product. Their chairs are very high quality, and I definitely recommend getting a chair from them if you've been looking for an upgrade. If you'd like to get one, you can use my link in the description, and come on, even Faker uses their chairs. The first thing to talk about are some in-game settings that you should change. I'm not going to go too in-depth with this one, just a few that I think is important. First one is FPS.limit -1. This basically just unlocks your FPS. Your screen mode should be at exclusive, and VSync should be off in your settings. For the FOV, I'd recommend 90, but it's ultimately your preference. Graphics.vm FOV scale should be at false though, as leaving it on makes the gun scale relatively to your FOV. Your true sensitivity comes from your eDPI, which is your effective dots per inch. It's calculated by multiplying the mouse DPI with the in-game sensitivity. Mine, for example, is 400 DPI with 0.475 in-game, so my eDPI would be 190. If someone had 1600 DPI with 0.11 in-game, our sensitivity would actually be very similar. The higher your DPI is, the smoother your mouse movement gets. I'm not an expert, but it's as if your mouse sees more frames with a higher DPI. Your mouse would be much more responsive to small micro movements, and your cursor feels way more fluid compared to lower DPI. But it's not always a good thing. In a game like Rust, you rarely shoot at people moving at a fast pace, and there aren't players flying around everywhere like in Overwatch. For linear movement, aka trying to draw a straight line from left to right, lower DPI is actually better because your mouse won't be picking up the small mistakes your hand might make that goes up and down. A good example would be CSGO, where lower DPI will help you stabilize your crosshair to be at head level at all times. It's good practice to just try out all the different sensitivities and DPIs to see what feels the best for you. In my opinion, the sweet spot was somewhere in between 0.3 in-game to 0.7 with 400 DPI. Honestly, a simple way would be to change your sensitivity until you can comfortably do a 180 turn in one mouse swipe. Before we get into the actual guns, we need to take a look at the attachments. First, let's go over the bad ones. The muzzle brake decreases the recoil by 50%, but the velocity and damage gets reduced by 20% and accuracy reduced by a whole 38%. The damage and velocity nerf is too big, and having your accuracy reduced means that your gun is really only effective close range. You're going to learn the recoil anyway after this video, and besides, the recoil rarely matters that much in close range combat. Do not use this. The next one you probably shouldn't use is the handmade sight. It zooms the gun by 0.5x and doesn't really offer any valuable stats. There are much better scopes in the game, and you might only put this on weapons that have really bad iron sights. Even still, the handmade sight is pretty bad with how much it covers up your screen. The 16x scope is quite useless as well unless you're shooting at people from over 250 meters away. Rust PvP rarely happens from that range, and the intense zoom just makes your scope sensitivity super low, causing you to tunnel vision and have worse aim. Next, the muzzle boost increases your fire rate by 10%, but reduces your velocity and damage by 10% as well. This attachment is very situational, where it only becomes useful when your opponent has lesser gear and you're in very close combat. In most scenarios, this actually reduces your damage output, as a damage decrease might make the enemy tank one additional shot to kill them. Now onto the ones that you should definitely use. The flashlight is self-explanatory. If it's dark, it lights up the area, you should use it. It's useful even at daytime, as it can blind your enemies at close range. The 8x scope is also very obvious. It's great on snipers, the LR300, M249, or even the AK. Next is a silencer. This is probably one of the best attachments in certain scenarios. The 25% decrease on velocity and damage might seem like a lot, but it also reduces recoil by 20% and increases accuracy by 33%. In Rust, you can't really hear where the silenced shots are coming from, so you're able to take down multiple enemies without them ever shooting back at you. If you put this attachment on a gun that doesn't output a lot of damage, it'll feel like you're shooting pea bullets. But if you attach it on an AK or an M249, that's where it's most effective. The next attachment to go over is the laser sight. When activated, you get a laser pointer on your gun and it increases your accuracy by 44%. What this really means is that you're going to have less aim cone or less spread on your bullets, so you can have much tighter sprays. This is pretty much good on any gun, but I say on guns that have set recoil patterns, that's where a laser is super effective. It's also great on snipers as it reduces weapon sway, so you can have a much more stable shot. Also, the tactical glove when worn gives you more accuracy and less sway as well. When you have the laser sight and tactical gloves on, your barrel doesn't move. Similar to the laser sight, there is a sleeper OP attachment called a holosight. For the majority of Rust's existence, if you were using a holosight, you were seen as a noob or a role player, but that's not the case anymore. The holosight increases accuracy by 70% and also has a 2x zoom scope. Not only is it almost double the laser in terms of aim cone reduction, you're able to have a flashlight on at the same time, which you cannot do with the laser. Whenever you have it, the holosight is great on any SMGs, the AK, or an M249. It increases the effective range on any weapon by 2-fold. You can put a laser sight and a holosight at the same time, and theoretically it should give you more than 100% accuracy, but in reality, having both of them on actually lessens the effectiveness of both the attachments for some reason. This might get fixed in the future by the devs, but that's just how it is for now. Unlike other games like CSGO or Valorant where you have to counter-strafe to be accurate, your shots in Rust are still going to go where you aim at while moving. There's a lot of different things that affect how much damage you'll do to a person. Which gun you're using, which type of ammunition you're using as it has different stats for each one, your distance between you and the target as there is damage fall off, what kind of armor the target is wearing, or where on the body you land your shots. For example, headshots have a 2x damage multiplier with guns. You need to take all of this into account when calculating how many bullets it'll take to kill an enemy. Finally, we're at the most important part of the tutorial, the guns itself. I'll be going over everything you need to know about each gun. The weapons in Rust are categorized into 4 levels: Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Military Grade. Military grade weapons cannot be crafted and can only be found, and the tiered weapons are classified by which workbench you need to craft them. The spray pattern of each weapon will be on the screen so you can better understand how to control it. We'll actually be starting with the AK-47 here, the reason being it's the best gun you can craft, and learning this will help you understand the other spray patterns as well. The AK-47 is one of the greatest guns in Rust and is great at close, medium, and long range. A lot of people explain the AK spray like an S pattern, but it's actually not quite. If we shoot an AK into a wall, reverse it vertically and horizontally, we can actually see exactly what we need to do with our mouse. You control the first bullet by a sharp pull down left and then one bullet straight down, and after that, it gets easier as you just draw an S with your mouse. The next challenge really is when you get to the last 10 bullets, you have a super sharp turn to the right and it's pretty hard to get the right timing. You can try to trace the pattern with your mouse on this video to get an idea of what the pattern should feel like, but the best way to get better is to actually keep trying it in game. The AK in particular is very versatile because it's a great fully automatic weapon, but it's also very good for tapping and bursting. For tapping, you can either hard reset your shots by manually moving your mouse up and down, or just simply pull your mouse down left in between your shots. This is good for when you're not in immediate danger to get shot at or die, as you can just tap your enemies from far away to preserve your ammo while being more accurate. Bursting just means that you're going to shoot 7 to 10 bullets, wait 0.5 seconds so that it resets your spray, and shoot 7 to 10 bullets again. This means you can choose to only master the first 10 bullets of the AK and still hit all your shots. But one good thing about learning the whole 30 bullet spray would be for spray transferring. There comes a time where there's multiple players in front of you and you don't have a lot of time to burst or tap. Understanding the full spray can help you take more targets down faster. The LR is a great assassination weapon for people that might have trouble with the AK but still want a gun that lasers people from medium to long range. The LR's pattern is very similar to the AK. It's essentially the same S pattern. The only thing different is that the vertical recoil is almost halved, and the turns within the spray pattern is way more sharp. While the vertical and horizontal recoil is much more balanced than the AK, the LR is more of a long, straight pull down, and then it gets wild towards the end. The first bullets of the LR is also much more tame compared to the wild first shots of the AK. That being said, I usually only ever spray the first 20 bullets of the LR or do 5-round bursts. I think the LR really shines once you slap an 8x scope on this thing. The MP5 is the best SMG in the game with relatively high damage and an insane fire rate. The It's great close range and medium range as you can get deleted by it in seconds. The MP5 actually has a completely different pattern to the AK. The first 4 bullets go straight down, which makes it very strong and easy to do 5-round bursts. After that, you go diagonally right for another 4 bullets, diagonally left for another 5, diagonally right for 6, and the rest of the spray you just move your mouse straight left. Apart from the first 10 bullets, most of the controlling comes from moving your mouse horizontally, so you don't have to pull down that much. I find myself doing the full 30 bullet spray with this gun a lot, since the damage isn't as high as the AK, where I do 5-round bursts, mostly focused on hitting headshots. The Thompson is a fairly strong SMG with great damage but lower fire rates. It can be great at 1v1 duels from close to medium range, and the Thompson has a very similar pattern to the MP5, but the recoil pattern is longer and skinnier. The left and right turns within the recoil comes earlier than the MP5, and the latter part of the spray is more of just pulling down. I don't usually like this weapon that much, but it does do the most damage out of all the SMGs per shot. I usually full spray this weapon and rarely tap or burst with this. The custom SMG is an insane weapon to have close range to clear out rooms or angles. The recoil is almost identical to the Thompson in a lot of aspects, so there's not much to say about it. The only difference I'd say is that it has a faster fire rate and lower damage than the Thompson. In close range, I actually prefer this weapon over the Thompson and only ever full spray with the custom SMG. That's it for all the guns that have a set recoil pattern, and it's now time to cover the rest of the weapons. Probably one of the best and standard tier 2 weapons to use, the SAR is a semi-automatic gun which is great medium to long range. It doesn't need any attachments to be strong or accurate, but unlike the other automatic weapons that we covered, you do get way more recoil on the SAR if you don't sit down while shooting. The SAR's recoil just goes straight up, so all you really need to do is pull straight down with your mouse. You'll see a lot of players spamming the SAR from medium range, but that's actually a mistake in my opinion. When you do this, you get quite a lot of aim cone, making you miss a lot of shots even if your crosshair is on the target. A better way to use a SAR from medium range is to tap it, mostly focusing on headshots. For reference, it does the same amount of damage as the LR300. The M39 is just a better gun than the SAR all around, more damage, more range, but slightly less fire rate. It also does the same damage as the AK. The M39 is amazing medium range and long range and is great for stealthy plays. It's basically a DMR and can double as a semi-auto sniper. This gun truly shines when you have an 8x scope on it, and despite the game saying it has the same accuracy as a SAR, in my personal experience, spamming the M39 doesn't have as much aim cone as a SAR for some reason. Now what can I say about this gun? It's undeniably the best gun in Rust. Nothing compares to it and it is overpowered. The M249 has 100 bullets, you can use it as a fully automatic sniper, 30% more damage than the AK, faster fire rate than the AK, you can mow down entire clans without them even figuring out where you are from upwards to 250 meters. Actually, there's an F1 console command called player.recoil comp. This allows the game to make your sight go back to where it was after firing once. This is incredibly OP for tapping at players from a long range, as you don't really need to do anything, you just need to click. This applies to the M249 and the M92. Another thing is, the aim cone on the M249 gets progressively worse the less FPS you have. I'm sure this is a bug, but a person with 140 FPS will get a massive advantage with the M249 accuracy than a guy that has 30 FPS. As for the recoil, just pull straight down, but keep in mind there is a bit of randomness as it can sway left or right. Next up is the pistols. The Python is the best pistol in the game as it has the same damage as the AK and has comparable fire rate to it. It has great accuracy that allows you to snipe people from long range, and you can delete people from close range if you spam it. Compared to the MP5, where you might spend 100 pistol bullets in a few sprays, you can save a lot of ammunition by getting comfortable with the Python. It also doesn't need any attachments, so it's a really resourceful weapon. The only downside is the limited magazine with only 6 bullets. It's difficult to fight multiple enemies with this gun, so holding an angle or fighting at medium range with cover is where it really shines. The M92 is a decent gun when it comes to close range. It used to be one of the better weapons, but along with the fire rate nerf, the intense recoil and aim cone, this gun is not that great to use. But I will show you something that might make it viable. I haven't seen anyone else use this, and this can actually make this gun really good. If we combine the player.recoil comp from earlier with a Hello sight, the The M.2 can be insane. The hollow sight reduces the harsh aim cone, while the recoil comp makes the intense recoil something you don't even have to worry about. The P2 is a cheap gun that might be good for solo players and might be okay as a secondary weapon, but it's honestly not that good by itself with its low damage, low fire rate, and horrendous aim cone. You always want to tap with this unless you're close range. The gun is okay at best, but I'd much rather make a Python than a P2. The only good thing is that you don't need a spring to make a P2. The revolver is pretty much just the worst P2, not much to say other than don't spray with this pistol, and it's a great weapon to make early game when you only have a tier 1 workbench. A good combination would be to start with a crossbow and finish the enemy with a revolver. The bolt action rifle is a great weapon to use long range, and especially against lower tier players. It can one-shot hazmats or coffee cans from within a 60-meter range or so, and it's just great at controlling an area, preventing enemies from pushing. Not much to say about the snipers in this game, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a great weapon to have to control medium to long range fights. The L96 is a true point and click gun. It has one more bullet than the Bolt, has better distance with lower bullet drop off, but I actually like the bolt action better. It's more satisfying to use because you actually have to calculate the velocity instead of just aiming at the head, and the Bolt has a faster fire rate. The server that I usually practice and warm up on is called Rustoria Training Grounds. There's a lot of other aim training servers in Rust, but I feel like Rustoria does it best. If you like to get better using the same server I did, here's the IPs to the NA, EU, and Australian servers. The aim training arena is great for refining your recoil against standstill targets, while the other map has bots that run around where you can practice leading shots and control the recoil against moving targets. The server also has some sick free-for-all maps you can join to play against real players, and private PvP arenas so you can practice with your friends. Ryan, the owner of Astoria, gave me a sneak peek of what they've been working on to improve the server even more. It seems like a lot of the arenas are seeing a big upgrade in capacity so more of you can join, the FPS is going to be better, the UI is improved, and they added a bunch more unique arenas. The updates will be live around a week after this video is released. The only way to get better and more consistent is to join practice servers like this to get a feel for what the recoil is like, learn how each attachment interacts with every weapon, and you'll slowly develop muscle memory. Improvement comes gradually, and at different paces for different people. You shouldn't compare yourself to anyone, just focus on working on your weak points and getting better each day. Maybe you can try doing a bunch of 180 turns with your mouse so you get better at reacting to getting shot from behind. Try shooting with a silencer from far away so you can get used to leading your shots more, especially since you can't see the tracers. You could practice spraying at moving targets, or while you yourself is strafing to make the pattern something you do unconsciously. You might want to improve your flicks or your one-taps. You might hop on a PvP arena so you get better accustomed to real player movement. Maybe go roam with your best gun. Whether you lose or not, maybe you'll overcome your gear fear. Most importantly, don't get too upset when you die or misplay something. Just try to have fun, and one day you'll get there. I hope this video helped you, and if you'd like to see more from me, maybe you'll subscribe.